Hey guys, today we're going to be discussing the effectiveness of Dharoks at Nightmare Zone. NMZ is located just outside of Yanil and allows you to refight quest bosses. It's known for being the best place to train combat to the point where some would even call it overpowered. I will be discussing the setup for this method, but not the bare basics of Nightmare Zone in this video. The old school wiki has quite a few resources to help you get started, which I will leave in the pinned comments. Dharocking in Nightmare Zone has been a very common method for a very long time. But how effective is it really? Most equipment sets DPS scale with only your strength and attack, but Dharoks is unique. It also scales with your hit points level heavily, each level equating to about a 1% DPS increase. Having maxed combat but 70 hit points versus maxed combat with 99 hit points is literally a 35% DPS difference. Because of how slowly you swing the axe, if you have base 70 combat stats, you're going to be getting better DPS with a proselyte and whip setup than with Dharoks. It's only at about 85 base combat stats and hit points that you begin to get better DPS than a whip setup. But if you're in a similar boat as me, have pretty high melee stats and hit points, or have maxed combat and simply want to get XP for the high scores, Dharoks suddenly becomes the best setup for DPS by a large margin. A whip setup is about 20% less DPS in this circumstance. A Grazi Rapier with best in slot melee gear is still about 5% worse than Dharoks. The only setup that wins DPS-wise is a charged scythe at about 10% more DPS. An uncharged scythe is actually also still worse. If you are filthy rich and don't mind slapping down 1.4 mil an hour to use a scythe at Nightmare Zone for training, that might be worth doing. For the other 99.99% of us, Dharoks is probably going to stay the best method. The only downside to Dharoks is it isn't as AFK as a proselyte whip setup, but is significantly better XP an hour and costs way less over time because you don't pray protect from melee. Let's get into setup. Because this requires such high levels to be effective, I'm going to assume you have the basic gear pieces: Dharoks, a blessing, an imbued Zerker ring, and a fire cape. The Amulet of Torture provides 2% more DPS than a Fury. The Ferocious Gloves are also 2% more DPS than Barrow's Gloves. The Primordial Boots provide a fraction of a percent DPS boost. If you can't afford them, Dragon Boots are more than acceptable. Finally, my spec weapon is Dragon Claws. I had 50 mil hanging around, so I nabbed them. This is hard to calculate, but they are just slightly better than a Granite Maul with a handle. If you don't have cash laying around to drop on Claws, just bring a G-Maul. It's totally fine. Next is Inventory. If you have completed Dragon Slayer 2, you can bring a Locator Orb. This is the most efficient way of damaging yourself outside of the wilderness, as it damages you 10 each time you click it, unlike the Dwarven Rock Cake, which scales the damage down as your health lowers. Both the orb and the rock cake cannot kill you, and each will work for lowering your health to 1. You can talk to Ava in Draenor Manor to get more locator orbs if you need them. For the inventory, I bring 12 doses of Overload and 24 doses of Absorption Potion, then a Holy Wrench, and fill the rest of my inventory with Prayer Potions. This is the perfect ratio of supplies to last 1 hour. I actually ended this trip with 1 Prayer Potion left over and a few absorptions. I bring the extra absorptions in case I get unlucky with my Overload running out and getting hit really hard. I have run out of absorptions before my prayer potions before. You want to pick customizable hard rumble as your dream? Hard mode just doubles the offensive stats and health of the bosses, but not their defense. Because their health is 1 anyway, this just increases the XP an hour and points an hour. The bosses I choose are Count Draenor, Sand Snake, Moss Guardian, Arg, and the Ice Troll King. These bosses provide a bonus experience multiplier and don't inflict any status effects. With a sufficient amount of coins in the coffer, you're ready to start. Before we do that, I have some helpful RuneLite settings that will make AFKing easier and raise your XP an hour. First is game notifications. These are useful for all aspects of RuneScape, not just Nightmare Zone. Allowing the game to play a tone when something happens in game, like a power surge spawning or you being low on prayer, will allow you to keep your eyes off the screen longer. It's also smart to allow in-game notifications so you can know what the game is actually notifying you about. In the Nightmare Zone plugin, I only check Power Surge power-ups, as these are the only power-ups that boost your XP an hour. I also allow it to notify me if my overload is about to run out, or if my absorption is below 50. Another useful resource is a 50-second interval timer. This beeps every 50 seconds, allowing you to flick Rapid Heal on and off, which resets the health restore timer back to 1 minute. This prevents you from ever having to lower your health with the orb again, and keeping your health at 1. This improves your DPS and XP an hour, as well as saving absorption potions. I will provide a link to that in the pinned comments as well. First thing I do when I get in is take a sip of Overload. The overload hits you for 50 hit points. I then drink some absorption potions. I restore my absorption to 200, not higher, just in case I AFK too hard and run out of overload and waste them all. I then reduce my health to 1, throw on piety, auto-retaliate, and the interval timer, and relax. I like to sit on the sides so there's less chance of getting hit by multiple enemies at once, saving more absorption potions. When you see a Power Surge power-up, grab it and pull out your spec weapon. Power Surge gives you 45 seconds of infinite special attack, dramatically increases your damage and XP an hour for a little bit. This is the only power-up I worry about, as the others don't improve your XP, and they actually kill or damage monsters faster. With this setup, I get on average 160k XP an hour, depending on Power Surge spawns, and 270k points per hour. The herb boxes you can buy pay for your entrance fee and repairs on the Dharoks, leaving just the cost of the prayer potions. And that's it for this guide. Back when I was a lower level, I used Dharoks at NMZ for quite a few levels. It's good to know that mistake I made will not go to waste, as this video will prevent you guys from doing the same. Leave a like if you liked it, or subscribe. Thanks, guys.